The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
How the Universe Manifests Your Desires by Melody Fletcher.
How the universe delivers our manifestations. The law of attraction states that you manifest anything you give enough focus to. By giving your attention to a thought, you activate that thought's vibration, and the law of attraction will cause more vibrations like it to be drawn to it. Once enough energy is gathered, the vibration becomes physical. But what does that look like in the practical sense? If I think about $1 million with laser-like focus, will I just wake up one morning and find a huge pile of cash in bed next to me? Well, no. That's not usually how it works. Manifestations don't just tend to drop out of the sky. We simply don't really believe that they can. The universe brings us our manifestations through the path of least resistance. That doesn't necessarily mean what we think it does, though. The path of least resistance isn't what is easiest for the universe. There are no limits on that end. The possibilities are infinite. It's what's easiest for you to allow. That's why negative beliefs have the ability to block your manifestations. They vibrate at a different, often opposite frequency to what you want, and basically shut down avenues in which you could receive those items.
Dummies.
In order to manifest something, we have to give it enough focus to bring it into the physical, and we have to ensure there are no contradictory or opposite beliefs blocking it. So if you want $1 million, not only do you have to spend some time thinking wonderful, positive thoughts about the money, but you also have to ensure that you don't harbor any beliefs such as, I'm always going to be poor, rich people are immoral, or it's impossible for me to earn $1 million, etc. So let's say you harbor no contradictory beliefs to having $1 million. You think money is great, it's absolutely possible for you to receive $1 million in some way, and it doesn't even really feel like a big deal to you. How will the universe deliver this manifestation? We've already concluded that it's not just going to drop out of the sky. The universe delivers manifestations in the form of insights, hunches, and coincidences. It brings you together with just the right people at just the right time. It may orchestrate a delay in traffic, ensuring a chance meeting in the elevator with the owner of your company, whom you'll get in a seemingly innocent conversation with, during which you'll just happen to pitch your idea for a new product. He loves the idea, puts you in charge of the new division created to build and distribute the product, and 1 year later, you get a bonus check for $1 million. Or you may have a strong, almost overwhelming hunch to go and buy a lottery ticket, even though you never, ever buy lottery tickets. But this one day, for some reason, you really think you should. And just this one time, you buy one. And it's a winner. Notice how this entire process depends on you listening to your intuition and hunches. In the elevator, when you met the owner of your company, you had the hunch to tell him about your idea. By following that impulse, you change the entire course of your life. But what happens if you don't listen? If you freeze up and let fear keep you from having this conversation? Well, nothing. The owner never hears your idea, and you've missed a chance at $1 million, except you don't even know it. The process of deliberately receiving the life you want depends on your ability to pay attention to the signs the universe is giving you. It's not so much about thinking your way through life as feeling your way through it. If something feels right, pay attention. This is something you'll probably want to do, even if you can't logically justify your actions. If something feels wrong, be careful. Even if it looks good on paper, your intuition is giving you a message. The more you pay attention to how you feel about things, the more you practice listening to your intuition and noticing coincidences, the better you'll get at this. After you notice a few times that following your intuition, even if it defied rational thinking a bit, led to the perfect outcome, something you couldn't have orchestrated in 1,000,000 years, you'll become more confident in your ability to follow your hunches. I'm not asking you to completely turn off your rational mind, but consider your feelings as equally valid, if not more so, input in your decision-making process, especially if the risk of following your intuition is low. Try it for yourself. You might well just be amazed at where these heretofore unseen opportunities lead you.
What do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
You begin to notice that the things that you lightly are contemplating are flowing easily into your experience. Because in the light feeling, in the absence of effort feeling, in the light, so light, maybe it's because it's unimportant, maybe because it's unimportant, I haven't been beating the drum of it, and so I don't have a lot of momentum going in opposition to it. But in the lightness of it, the universe demonstrates it in some obvious way. So this is what brought Esther to the question. The lightness seems like the opposite of effort. So when I find myself trying, which is, we hear that from you a little bit, in the realization that you're trying, you might want to stop and say, this trying could be counterproductive. I'm efforting, which means I'm not engaging the energy that creates worlds, which means I think I'll just give this another run tomorrow. And as you do that and do that and do that, you're going to find that effort is not a factor in your experience. You're going to find that trying and struggle are not a factor in your experience. You're going to begin to discover that things that you want lightly come easily. So there's something important to be talking about there. How can I feel light about something I've been so intense about for so long? And we say, by giving it a rest. By giving it a rest, by focusing on some other things for a while, or by getting as general about it as you can. And things just work out. They just work out. Funny thing to hear from someone who's teaching you about deliberate creation. Deliberate creation. Deliberate creation is about tuning your frequency. Deliberate creation is about feeling your emotions and knowing what they're telling. Deliberate creation is about understanding the relationship between who you really are and what you really want and what you're doing right here and now. Deliberate creation is about chilling out so that there's no resistance and then focusing. It's about tending to the frequency first and then applying the thought. Oh, all right now. Abraham, you said that I think and then I feel. So, are you actually taking thought back to the element of frequency? Yep. Can you find a frequency without a thought? Can you feel the frequency of love? Can you feel the frequency of love? Now, don't get carried away about who you love or who you loved or anything like that. Just feel the frequency of love. Can you feel the frequency of love? Can you feel the frequency of enthusiasm? Can you feel the frequency of fun? So it's possible to feel a frequency by interpreting it through emotion in a sort of thoughtless place. That's all we're asking you to do. That's the thing to do first thing in the morning. Wake up and enjoy the non-thought. Don't be too quick to try to figure out what this day means and where you have to go and what you have to do. Just give yourself, if you can, 68 seconds of just basking in the energy, in the non-action, non-verbal, even non-thought vibrational frequency. Just give it a chance and see what happens. And then watch how the thoughts begin to follow suit. It is our promise to you. Get that momentum going and you'll be off on the right foot. And as soon as tomorrow, you'll have a day unlike any other day that you've ever had. We're not kidding you. Give it a month and you'll feel absolute control of your experience. And when people see the difference in the way you feel, they'll say, what are you doing? And you say, it's kind of hard to describe. I'm doing a lot less than I've ever done before. Well, what do you mean? Well, I'm focused upon the way I feel. Well, what does that mean? It means I don't want to talk about this with you anymore. There's a really good chance you're going to talk me off my high-flying disc. Well, what are you smoking? Well, it's not like that. This is a non-drug high. It's a non-drug alignment. It's alignment that has always been there for me that now I'm consciously tapping into. It's alignment that I've been stumbling on all my life, just didn't know how to maintain it. Didn't know how to create it to begin with and didn't know how to maintain it. Now I do, so I'm doing a more consistent job of it. So I've got more momentum going. So I've got more airtime happening, more vibrational airtime, more attention, more verbal time, more stuff from me about those pipes that I want to keep open. What pipes are you talking about? Well, you see, there's this path of least resistance between me and everything else. And it's a path of least resistance between me and what I want. It's a path of least resistance between me and what I don't want. It's a path of least resistance. And I'm just keeping the pathway open on the things that I care about. Well, how do you know the difference? Things I care about that I really want feel good to me when I think about them. When I'm focused upon what I want, it always feels good. When I'm focused in opposition, it never feels good. Oh, seems too simplistic to me, I'll say. I know it did to me at first. That's why I tried to make it harder than it needed to be. I made it harder than it needed to be for quite a while. And then who knew? I'm supposed to feel good. Life is supposed to be fun. I have endless unseen energies that have my back, who know what I want, who are pointing the way. I had no idea the leverage, the creative energy that was available to me until I started pointing it. Well, what have you accomplished with this? I feel great. I know, but what else? Well, I just feel wonderful. Well, what else? Well, it's too much to tell. Well, tell me something. Well, I just feel great. I feel great. And mostly nice people are around me. And people who used to bother me aren't coming around. And some of them that used to bother me don't bother me anymore. And ideas come more easily to me. I'm more intuitive. I'm more clear-minded. The things that occur to me occur in better timing. So when I act on them, I get more immediate results. The things that I want are just flowing into my experience. My day-to-day moments are really exciting. I used to look forward to a vacation and kind of put up with everything before it. And now every day feels sort of like that vacation. I have that lighthearted feeling all day, even when you're at work. Yeah, especially when I'm at work, because I feel purposeful there and I feel momentum there. And there's this give and take thing that happens with me at work where we're all winning as a result of our co-creating together. It's some of the best time that I spend is when I'm at work. So many lovely people in this world. Have you noticed? Well, not so much. I haven't noticed that so much. Well, that's because I'm on my high-flying disc. I know that's what. Well, now tell me about this stupid disc. How did you get on this high-flying disc? I was born there. I was born there. I talked myself out of it with a lot of help from others who had forgotten about it too. But no, I mean, how did you get on it today? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Well, this morning when I woke up, I just thought happy thoughts. So that's your philosophy. You just think happy thoughts. Yeah? I stopped watching television for the most part. There's some shows I really like that I'm recording and watching, fast forwarding through all the commercials, which means television won't be around for long because, yeah, just think happy thoughts. Hang around with people who feel good mostly. Think of reasons to feel good. But mostly, I just get up looking for a reason to feel good and almost always find it immediately. And then I milk it. Some people will think that it's too simplistic, but as you begin to demonstrate how great you feel, and as they begin to see, especially those who know you, the things that they've been hearing you talk about, as they begin to see those things flowing into your experience, as they begin to see your prosperity improving and your laughter more obvious and common, and they begin to notice how clear-minded you are and what good timing you have, what good comedic timing, what good intellectual timing, what good psychological timing, just what good timing. It's going to be so noticeable. You are going to be such powerful demonstrators of those who have accessed and harnessed and directed the energy that creates worlds, that a sort of euphoric feeling of joyful invincibility is going to be yours, to the point that when people point out even the most serious seeming from their perspective of problems, you're going to stand solid in your knowing of all is wellness, and you're going to support them in the same way that Source supports you by not freaking out because they have chosen a lower flying disc. And before you know it, you won't freak out when you find a lower flying disc either. You'll understand how it works. You'll understand that, this is just a step one moment, and that's all part of the process. I'm predominantly now, for the first several years of my life, I was predominantly in step 3 because I was born that way. Then those around me began insisting that I become more accountable, which meant try to compensate for their inability to stay on their disc. We hope you heard that in the way we meant it. So then I had sort of a rough ride for a while where I was having predominantly step 1 moments. What are step 1 moments? Contrasting moments where I know what I don't want, so I know what I do want. I know what I don't want, so I know what I do want. So I was asking for quite a few years of my life. I was predominantly doing step 1 moments, stumbling accidentally into alignment, but not really knowing what I was doing. But it was a good plan because during that step 1 phase of my life experience, all of you have passed through that now. I filled my vortex with all kinds of specifics that matter to me. And now you're in the step 3 phase of your life experience, where now, getting on the high flying disc, that's your work, that's your work, that's your work, that's your work, that's your work. So I'm done, Abraham, I'm not going to create anymore. Oh no, because you're not going to stay on the high flying disc. You're going to dip, you're going to still have step 1 moments, but you're predominantly going to be living step 3 moments. Occasional step 1 moments, because you can't not expand. You want to continue to clarify, but predominantly step 3 moments. You see what we're getting at? How can I assure predominant step 3 moments? By making sure every day at least starts there. And if we have done the best sales job that we have ever done about anything, we've convinced you to at least give it a go, to at least try to see what happens. And we would so love a repeat of this gathering with these identical, magnificent beings 30 days from today to hear from you what has happened since you have found and established and maintained and enjoyed and understood what it feels like to be on that light-hearted, good-feeling, high-flying disc.
Friends, there is a power in the universe greater than you are. This thing called life is a living presence around and within you. And since it is around and within you, you do not have to go anywhere to find it. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Be still and know that I am God." In our discussion today, we are going to talk about this power and how you can use it in the miracle of your everyday life. Jet planes flying faster than the speed of sound, television, nylon yarn, and 1,000 other modern inventions make us realize this is really an age of grace. It was 2,000 years ago that Jesus told his followers about a power that is available to everyone, a power to which all things are possible. And he laid down explicit rules for the use of this power. The thing that made Jesus different from others was his simple acceptance that there is a power of good available to you right where you are and to everyone. It was his use of this power that amazed those around him. It was the simplicity of his claim that made it hard to understand. And when he said, "It is done unto you as you believe," it seemed as though he must have been talking about some distant future, not something that is true every moment of your life. Jesus said that the kingdom of God is at hand. He said this kingdom contains everything necessary to your well-being. That this thing called life waits for you to recognize its presence and use its power. Jesus placed salvation where it can be reached and entered into here and now. His whole teaching was an affirmation of the availability of divine power, a power of good which you can use. Now this is exactly what everyone needs. For you and I know that we did not create the laws of nature. We did not set the stars in their course, or cause the sun to shine, or the earth to revolve on its axis. Suppose then we start with this simple proposition. We are surrounded by a creative intelligence that acts on our thought, just as gravitational force acts on physical objects. This is the key to the situation, and it is the key to answered prayer, and it is a golden key, because it can unlock the doorway of opportunity. It can bring something new, something different and wonderful into your experience. We must accustom our minds to the thought that there are mental and spiritual laws, and that they act just like other laws of nature. Of course, no one has ever seen these laws. But did you ever see the principle of mathematics? Did anyone ever see life itself? Science doesn't claim to see the laws of nature. It merely says we have discovered that these laws exist, and through experiment we have found out how they work. Science says we know these laws exist because we can use them. Don't be concerned then if someone asks why the law of faith exists, what it looks like. For no one would ever ask this question about any other natural law. They would merely say it exists. And why not use it? Now Jesus proclaimed a law of good that is available to everyone. He said this law responds to your faith. And in saying it is done unto you as you believe, he presented you with the key to the situation. It is done unto you. You don't have to do it yourself. This at once relieves you of the responsibility of compelling the laws of nature to work. It is not only done unto you, it is done unto you as you believe. Let us emphasize this little word, as. It is done unto you in the way you believe. This is the central meaning of the whole sentence. And no doubt this is the part we have all overlooked. Every law in nature delivers its power to us in accord with the way we use it. There is a power greater than you are, and you can use it. This power reacts to your belief in it. But Jesus added another thought to this when he said, you ask and receive not because you ask amiss. Let us see if this is a contradiction of his first statement. A little thought will show that it is not. Jesus was merely stating a self-evident truth. The power of God is good. It cannot produce evil. It is love. It cannot create hate. It is peace. It cannot enter into confusion. Therefore, Jesus said that while there is a power greater than you are that reacts to your belief, be certain that your belief is in accord with its nature.
Without the matter.
For your thought itself possesses no power whatsoever. It uses a power greater than you are. And this power is always the power of good. When you use this power for good, then, it delivers itself to you. Its whole creativity is then at your disposal. No, Jesus was not inconsistent. He was always logical as well as inspired. He not only said the law of good is at hand, he used it, and he told us how to use it. The kingdom of God is love. It is peace, joy. It is happiness. It is fatherhood and brotherhood. And there is no real restriction in the use of this power greater than you are. That is, when you use it for good. And now let us see just how we ought to use this law. And again, we are confronted by the simplicity and the directness of the wisest man who ever lived. For Jesus said that there is a certain way of thinking, a certain kind of belief that unlocks the storehouse of God to us. And he called this way of thinking faith. He called it acceptance. He referred to it as a childlike attitude toward God, a simple trust in this thing called life, a complete reliance on this power greater than you are. You see, Jesus was talking about your own mind, your way of thinking. And in his parable of the wise and the foolish virgins, he showed that everyone has oil for their own lamps. You need not borrow from another. Just as divine providence deposited oil in the ground for our use when we should need it, so the same divine providence has deposited the wealth of God's love and life at the center of your being. But Jesus said, you must keep your lamp trimmed and burning. You must let the wick of your faith run deep in the oil of spirit. Then your light will shine. Last, we are getting the proposition where we can handle it. We are like people who have owned land in which great wealth is deposited, but who are ignorant of the fact. We have been prospecting beyond our own property, thinking we could borrow life from others, not realizing that this thing called life has already buried its riches in our own pot of ground. And this pot of ground is in our own thinking, in our own convictions about life, in our faith in this thing called life, and in a power greater than we are. But it isn't enough to know that the treasure is buried in our pot of ground. We have to get out and dig for it. Perhaps this is where we fall down. It costs a lot of money to sink an oil well, and it takes a vast amount of technical skill and equipment and know-how, and it takes a lot of work. But if we know the oil is there, we will find some way to reach it. Now life has deposited the riches of the universe at the very center of your being, but it has to be brought to the surface, and the shop is in your own mind. The instruments and equipment are thoughts, and the power is faith. These two you possess. So you'd better set up your rig and start drilling. Sometimes you may encounter a granite ledge or some soft earth, and we can compare these to fear, to doubt, and to uncertainty, to the stubborn resistance of our own minds in accepting the simple truth that Jesus so carefully laid down. The sharp instrument of faith can penetrate the most solid obstruction, bore a hole straight through it, and reveal the treasure hidden there for endless ages. This is why Jesus said that we should pray without ceasing. You see, Jesus knew that the oil was there, and he knew how to find it, and he found it. He made the great discovery for us, and instead of proclaiming, "Look at my wealth," as though we must borrow from him, he said, "Keep your own life trimmed and burning. The wellspring of your life runs as deep, as full, and as free as mine." Jesus was the great explorer, the great way-shower. Having discovered God at the center of his own being, he proclaimed the good news that the kingdom is at hand to everyone, to every age, to all people, and forever. So then set up your rig and begin to drill. If the machinery gets squeaky at times, lubricate it. Lubricate it with the oil of hope. And if some of its parts break down, know that there is a divine mechanic within you that can repair it. Just keep on drilling, persevering in faith. Never take no for an answer. Never become discouraged. The oil is there. You and I didn't put it there. It was put there by a power greater than we are. In actual practice, this means that you must control your thinking. Remind yourself daily and hourly that since life is for you, nothing can be against you. You really can control your thinking, you know. And no one can do this for you but yourself. Take time each day to think about the bigness of things, to feel out the divine presence in everything, and to sense the fundamental harmony that exists at the center of everything. Don't leave this proposition up in the air and say, when I have time, I am going to do this. There will never come any day when you have more time than you have right now, today. That within you which denies the good you so sincerely desire is your own thought. When your mind says, this is too good to be true, or I can't understand it, or I have to wait to accumulate a vast wisdom, remember the thing that is talking to you. It is your own mind. It isn't some outside power or force that is operating against you. It is your own thought. Consciously, gently, and easily redirect these thoughts, rearrange them, so that for every no, there will be a yes. For every negative, there will be a positive. For every denial, there will be an affirmation. Have a good-natured flexibility with yourself, calm determination to think straight, no matter what happens. You are not concentrating any force or energy. You are merely coming into an agreement with a power that already exists, a power that is right where you are, and a power that you can use. There is no thought in your mind that you cannot change if you wish. And back of it all is your deep conviction that this thing called life will only what is good. You cannot fail because it cannot fail.
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
I have 100 questions, 1,000, a million. And the problem is I sometimes don't know where to begin.
Just start somewhere. Go ahead right now.
When will my life finally take off? What does it take to get it together and achieve even a modicum of success? Can the struggle ever end?
Good. Now we're getting to it. Don't apologize for these questions. These are the questions men and women have been asking for hundreds of years. If the questions were so silly, they wouldn't be asked over and over again by each succeeding generation. So let's go to question 1. I've established laws in the universe that make it possible for you to create exactly what you choose. These laws cannot be violated, nor can they be ignored. You are following these laws right now, even as you listen to this. You cannot not follow the law, for these are the way things work. You cannot step aside from this. You cannot operate outside of it. Every minute of your life, you have been operating inside of it, and everything you have ever experienced, you have thusly created. You are in a partnership with God. We share an eternal covenant. My promise to you is to always give you what you ask. Your promise is to ask, to understand the process of the asking and the answering. I've already explained this process to you once. I'll do so again so that you clearly understand it. You are a threefold being. You consist of body, mind, and spirit. You could also call these the physical, the non-physical, and the metaphysical. This is the Holy Trinity. and it has been called by many names. That which you are, I am. I am manifested as three in one. Some of your theologians have called this Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Your psychiatrists have recognized this triumvirate and called it conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. Your philosophers have called it the id, the ego, and the superego. Science calls this energy, matter, and antimatter. Poets speak of mind, heart, and soul. New Age thinkers refer to body, mind, and spirit. Your time is divided into past, present, and future. Could this not be the same as subconscious, conscious, and superconscious? Space is likewise divided into three, here, there, and the space between. It is defining and describing this space between that becomes difficult, elusive. The moment you begin defining or describing, the space you describe becomes here or there. Yet we know this space between exists. It is what holds here and there in place, just as the eternal now holds before and after in place. These three aspects of you are actually three energies. You might call them thought, word, and action. All three put together produce a result, which in your language and understanding is called feeling or experience. Your soul, subconscious, id, spirit, past, is the sum total of every feeling you've ever had, created. Your awareness of some of these is called your memory. When you have a memory, you are said to remember. That is, to put back together, to reassemble the parts. When you reassemble all of the parts of you, you will have remembered who you really are. The process of creation starts with thought, an idea, conception, visualization. Everything you see was once someone's idea. Nothing exists in your world that did not first exist as pure thought. This is true of the universe as well. Thought is the first level of creation. Next comes the word. Everything you say is a thought expressed. It is creative and sends forth creative energy into the universe. Words are more dynamic, thus some might say more creative than thought, because words are a different level of vibration from thought. They disrupt, change, alter, affect the universe with greater impact. Words are the second level of creation. Next comes action. Actions are words moving. Words are thoughts expressed. Thoughts are ideas formed. Ideas are energies come together. Energies are forces released. Forces are elements existent. Elements are particles of God, portions of all, the stuff of everything. The beginning is God. The end is action. Action is God creating or God experienced. Your thought about yourself is that you are not good enough, not wondrous enough, not sinless enough to be a part of God, in partnership with God. You have denied for so long who you are that you've forgotten who you are. This has not occurred by coincidence. This is not happenstance. It is all part of the divine plan. For you could not claim, create, experience who you are if you already were it. It was necessary first for you to release, deny, forget your connection to me in order to fully experience it by fully creating it, by calling it forth. For your grandest wish, and my grandest desire, was for you to experience yourself as the part of me you are. You are therefore in the process of experiencing yourself by creating yourself anew in every single moment, as am I, through you. Do you see the partnership? Do you grasp its implications? It is a holy collaboration, truly, a holy communion. Life will take off for you then, when you choose for it to. You have not so chosen as yet. You have procrastinated, prolonged, protracted, protested. Now it is time that you promulgated and produced what you have been promised. To do this, you must believe the promise and live it. You must live the promise of God. The promise of God is that you are his son, her offspring, its likeness, his equal. Here's where you get hung up. You can accept his son, offspring, likeness, but you recoil at being called his equal. It is too much to accept. Too much bigness, too much wonderment, too much responsibility. For if you are God's equal, that means nothing is being done to you and all things are created by you. There can be no more victims, no more villains, only outcomes of your thought about a thing. I tell you this, all you see in your world is the outcome of your idea about it. Do you want your life to truly take off? Then change your idea about it, about you. Think, speak, and act as the God you are. Of course, this will separate you from many, most of your fellow men. They will call you crazy. They will say you blaspheme. They will eventually have enough of you. They will attempt to crucify you. And they will do this not because they think you are living in a world of your own illusions. Most men are gracious enough to allow you your private entertainments. But because sooner or later others will become attracted to your truth by the promises it holds for them. Here is where your fellow men will interfere. For here is where you will begin to threaten them. For your simple truth, simply lived, will offer more beauty, more comfort, more peace, more joy, and more love of self and others than anything your earthly fellows could contrive. And that truth adopted would mean the end of their ways. It would mean the end of hatred and fear and bigotry and war. The end of the condemning and killing that has gone on in my name. The end of might is right. The end of purchase through power. The end of loyalty and homage through fear. The end of the world as they know it, and as you have created it thus far. So be ready, kind soul, for you will be vilified and spat upon, called names and deserted, and finally they will accuse you, try you, and condemn you, all in their own ways, from the moment you accept and adopt your holy cause, the realization of self. Why then do it? Because you are no longer concerned with the acceptance or approval of the world. You are no longer satisfied with what that has brought you. You are no longer pleased with what it has given others. You want the pain to stop, the suffering to stop, the illusion to end. You've had enough of this world as it presently is. You seek a newer world. Seek it no longer. Now, call it forth.
Yes, well, can you help me to better understand how to do that?
Yes. Go first to your highest thought about yourself. Imagine the you that you would be if you lived that thought every day. Imagine what you would think, do, and say, and how you would respond to what others do and say. Do you see any difference between that projection and what you think, do, and say now?
Yes. Yes, I see a great deal of difference.
Good. You should. Since we know that right now you are not living your highest vision of yourself. Now, having seen the differences between where you are and where you want to be, begin to change. Consciously change your thoughts, words, and actions to match your grandest vision. This will require tremendous mental and physical effort. It will entail constant, moment-to-moment monitoring of your every thought, word, and deed. It will involve continued choice-making, consciously. This whole process is a massive move to consciousness. What you will find out if you undertake this challenge is that you've spent half your life unconscious. That is to say, unaware on a conscious level of what you are choosing in the way of thoughts, words, and deeds until you experience the aftermath of them. Then when you experience these results, you deny that your thoughts, words, and deeds had anything to do with them. This is a call to stop such unconscious living. It is a challenge to which your soul has called you from the beginning of time.
That kind of continual mental monitoring seems as though it might be terribly exhausting.
It could be, until it becomes second nature. In fact, it is your second nature. It is your first nature to be unconditionally loving. It is your second nature to choose to express your first nature, your true nature, consciously,
Excuse me, but wouldn't this kind of non-stop editing of everything I think, say, and do make Jack a dull boy?
Never. Different, yes. Dull, no. Was Jesus dull? I don't think so. Was the Buddha boring to be around? People flocked, begged to be in his presence. No one who's attained mastery is dull. Unusual, perhaps. Extraordinary, perhaps, but never dull. So, do you want your life to take off? Begin at once to imagine it the way you want it to be, and move into that. Check every thought, word, and action that does not fall into harmony with that. Move away from those. When you have a thought that is not in alignment with your higher vision, change to a new thought, then and there. When you say a thing that is out of alignment with your grandest idea, make a note not to say something like that again. When you do a thing that is misaligned with your best intention, decide to make that the last time. And make it right with whomever was involved if you can.
Same thing we do every night. He's trying to take over the world.
The silent power of thought, controlling and directing one's forces. The most powerful forces in the universe are the silent forces. And in accordance with the intensity of its power, does a force become beneficent when rightly directed, and destructive when wrongly employed. This is a common knowledge in regard to the mechanical forces, such as steam, electricity, etc. But few have yet learned to apply this knowledge to the realm of mind, where the thought forces, most powerful of all, are continually being generated and sent forth as currents of salvation or destruction. At this stage of his evolution, man has entered into the possession of these forces, and the whole trend of his present advancement is their complete subjugation. All the wisdom possible to man on this material earth is to be found only in complete self-mastery, and the command, love your enemies, resolves itself into an exaltation to enter here and now into the possession of that sublime wisdom by taking hold of, mastering and transmuting those mind forces to which man is now slavishly subject, and by which he is helplessly borne, like a straw on the stream, upon the currents of selfishness. The Hebrew prophets, with their perfect knowledge of the supreme law, always related outward events to inward thought, and associated national disaster or success with the thoughts and desires that dominated the nation at the time. The knowledge of the causal power of thought is the basis of all their prophecies, as it is the basis of all real wisdom and power. National events are simply the working out of the psychic forces of the nation. Wars, plagues, and famines are the meeting and clashing of wrongly directed thought forces, the culminating points at which destruction steps in as the agent of the law. It is foolish to ascribe war to the influence of one man or to one body of men. It is the crowning horror of national selfishness. It is the silent and conquering thought forces which bring all things into manifestation. The universe grew out of thought. Matter, in its last analysis, is found to be merely objectivized thought. All men's accomplishments were first wrought out in thought and then objectivized. The author, the inventor, the architect first builds up his work in thought, and having perfected it in all its parts as a complete and harmonious whole upon the thought plane, he then commences to materialize it, to bring it down to the material or sense plane. When the thought forces are directed in harmony with the overruling law, they are upbuilding and preservative, but when subverted, they become disintegrating and self-destructive. To adjust all your thoughts to a perfect and unswerving faith in the omnipotence and supremacy of good is to cooperate with that good and to realize within yourself the solution and destruction of all evil. Believe and ye shall live. And here we have the true meaning of salvation. Salvation from the darkness and negation of evil by entering into and realizing the living light of the eternal good. Where there is fear, worry, anxiety, doubt, trouble, chagrin, or disappointment, there is ignorance and lack of faith. All these conditions of mind are the direct outcome of selfishness and are based upon an inherent belief in the power and supremacy of evil. They therefore constitute practical atheism, and to live in and become subject to these negative and soul-destroying conditions of mind is the only real atheism. It is salvation from such conditions that the race needs, and let no man boast of salvation whilst he is their helpless and obedient slave. To fear or to worry is as sinful as to curse, for how can one fear or worry if he intrinsically believes in the eternal justice, the omnipotent good, the boundless love? To fear, to worry, to doubt is to deny, to disbelieve. It is from such states of mind that all weakness and failure proceed, for they represent the annulling and disintegrating of the positive thought forces, which would otherwise speed to their object with power, and bring about their own beneficent results. To overcome these negative conditions is to enter into a life of power, is to cease to be a slave, and to become a master, and there is only one way by which they can be overcome, and that is by steady and persistent growth in inward knowledge. To mentally deny evil is not sufficient. It must, by daily practice, be risen above and understood. To mentally affirm the good is inadequate. It must, by unswerving endeavor, be entered into and comprehended. The intelligent practice of self-control quickly leads to a knowledge of one's interior thought forces, and later on, to the acquisition of that power by which they are rightly employed and directed. In the measure that you master self, that you control your mental forces instead of being controlled by them, in just such measure will you master affairs and outward circumstances. Show me a man under whose touch everything crumbles away, and who cannot retain success even when it is placed in his hands. And I will show you a man who dwells continually in those conditions of mind which are the very negation of power. To be forever wallowing in the bogs of doubt, to be drawn continually into the quicksands of fear, or blown ceaselessly about by the winds of anxiety, is to be a slave, and to live the life of a slave, even though success and influence be forever knocking at your door, seeking for admittance. Such a man, being without faith and without self-government, is incapable of the right government of his affairs, and is a slave to circumstances. In reality, a slave to himself. Such are taught by affliction, and ultimately pass from weakness to strength by the stress of bitter experience. Faith and purpose constitute the motive power of life. There is nothing but a strong faith.
Hi. Oh, look, we're in Brazil, Johnny.
We're on the beach?
We're on the beach, bro. We're on the beach, boy. Oh, shit. What in the fuck? Are you there? Or you hang up on us? Oh, we hung up on him. Let's call him back. Motherfucker hung up on me. Come on. Come on. What's happening? It's not doing it. It's like there's just too much going on with my phone right now. It's having a fucking heart attack.
Well, of course, look at all the things you got at the top. All the little messages and stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll close Facebook. Maybe that'll help. Nope. It's not going to work. Oh, it is ongoing. But it's not working.
Lost connection.
No. See, I understand that nothing worked the way it was supposed to, is what I understand. What the frig, man? Let's do this. Let's get rid of that. And I hope you learned something. I'm bored with you.